Alrighty. Space here.
Water? You can probably get a mug if that doesn't thing comes you guys, well, yeah, you guys aren't water bottles. Garbage. Not walking the plank or anything. She's doing a really good job, but if she forgets to say it.
Give her the.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll discuss a reminder with her right now.
Okay. She's doing really good so far.
Oh yeah, she's got it.
Yeah, she does. Oh. In fact, I was trying to think like borderline in the hallway. I was looking through the window. I'm like, figure out exactly.
Covfefe?
Always up and ready.
They won't lock you in.
You have your own personal Starbucks?
To support your dissertation, and we'll just start sending you delivering Starbucks to your house every morning.
We have an espresso machine, so I'll do it myself.
I got Peter an espresso machine for Christmas, and he's like, well, as a wire to the wall. No, the Nespresso brand one.
This is this guy could go. Oh, I know.
I know. He's going to be.
So yours is? This one's yours. Worth it though.
What did you do after graduation?
Well, it's the whole.
And he went to New York City, and I think he worked in Madison for a while.
Yeah, Maximus in charge.
Eventually, he ended up working.
Is it supposed to be on?
You what? Didn't I get it? Oh, no.
Shows and
Are they going to auction it off to school board members? That's more than $5 when you text together.
Well, another one of our classmates. No, our son is already.
Shopping it.
There were two people in the class named One of them were I bought a house.
Really? That was fast.
It closed on Friday.
And they were able to find something down there?
He didn't graduate. He left. Huge.
What's this mean?
There were in a whole bedroom.
This is.
I was going to text you to congratulate Eric, by the way. That's awesome.
Oh, I know. I'm so.
So, one thing I was supposed to remind you to do, and you got it already, I think, but state who made the motion and who seconded it
Okay.
for them.
Okay.
Is there any subtle way you want me to remind you if you forget? That's not distracting. I got this.
Oh yeah. Why don't you just point to it?
And you're on by the.
I appreciate the 5-minute recess period, but we're going to call the school board meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February 26, 2019, and Clerk Gorham, will you call order or roll call? Roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lilfald. I am present. Member Kirby.
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp is excused. Member Lilfald.
I'm here.
Member Oswald.
Here.
Member Sandstead.
Here.
Member Trinka.
Here.
Superintendent Grodseth.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Horton.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Erickson.
Here.
Secretary Dolans.
Here.
Secretary Thibault.
Here.
Student Representative Emma Natali. Did I get it? Natali. Sorry about that. Vanessa Farrell. Thank you. Chair, we have a quorum.
We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask for approval of our agenda.
So moved.
Sandstead approves or makes the motion, and Member Trinka seconds. So we have an approval of the agenda.
Take a vote. Take a vote.
Is there a vote on the approval of the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the agenda happens. So moved. Okay. And we're going to have a approval of our regular school board meeting on January 22nd, 2019. Approve those minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And I have a motion by Member Sandstead and a second by Member Oswald to approve the regular school board meetings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I need a motion to approve the special school board meeting minutes of February 11th of 2019. Do I have such a motion? Second?
Second.
It is seconded. It is motioned by Member Sandstead and seconded by Member Kirby. Do I have all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
6-0.
So next on our agenda is our school and community recognition, and I'll call on Assistant Superintendent Jeff Horton.
No, it's sorry, Superintendent doesn't watch.
Here.
Thank you. Members of the board, I'm pleased and honored to introduce Ms. Sharon Schuck and her supporters with her tonight, Ms. Gina Temple Rhodes, Mr. John Harold, Ms. Patty Fleege, and Ms. Kira Rhodes. As educators, we often talk about and encourage lifelong learning. That is, to pursue knowledge and growth throughout one's life. Ms. Schuck is an inspiring example. She's an alumni of Central High School, Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, and dedicated much of her life to a career in the medical field. After retiring, she studied home repair through community education classes and courses at Home Depot. She used those skills as a volunteer, helping people repair their homes after Hurricane Katrina. She wanted to write about her experiences and took courses to hone her skills through Community Education and Adult Learning Center. She also joined 2 writing groups. The confidence and support she received ultimately helped Ms. Schuck make the decisions to write her book called Blood Memories and Unbroken Spirit. This spring, her book is being published through Dovetail Press. Ms. Schuck's story and her accomplishments have been featured recently in the Duluth News Tribune and in the Women Today magazine. In the articles, Ms. Schuck says, "I want to be a native storyteller, to share with the next generation stories not to be forgotten, to put the memories, thoughts, feelings, and emotions in writing. Ms. Schuck, congratulations. We can't wait to read your book, and thank you for inspiring us all to be lifelong learners.
One-to-one support, because when I started there, I didn't know how to put it together after Katrina. I didn't know how to put my devastation on paper. And the book should going to be published next week.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
I'm not used to this. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me come.
Again, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Horton, for bringing forward such great people to give acknowledgement to, and congratulations again. We're going to go to our public comment, and will one of my members step forward and read our 11 tools of civility? Do I have to call on any one of you, or will you just? I would love it if it was our student rep, but maybe next month we'll do you. But Member Trinka, will you be willing? Thank you.
We will build on our shared beliefs and values of unity, high achievement, and responsible use of resources to create Duluth Public Schools and classrooms that are safe, supportive, and inclusive. We will work to inspire every student to achieve their potential and prepare students to lead productive, fulfilling lives as citizens of Duluth and the wider world. The school board recognizes 11 tools of civility that will provide increased opportunities for civil discourse in order to find positive resolutions to the issues that face our community. These tools include pay attention, listen, be inclusive, don't gossip, show respect, be agreeable, apologize, give constructive criticism, take responsibility, be honest and care for others, and show your evidence, share your reasoning.
Thank you, Member Trinka. We'll go on to our public comment portion of our meeting. And thank you all for signing up. And our first speaker is Bernie Burnham.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening and thank you. It's been a long time since I've been here, but I'm glad to be here tonight, so I have a few things to share. As you know, I wear two hats. I am the chair of the Duluth Community Schools Collaborative Board, and I just want to remind you that tomorrow night there is a powwow at Myers-Wilkins, the Steps to the Future powwow. It's from 4:30 to 7:30. I was over there earlier chopping celery for a good wild rice hot dish, and there will be lots of family members and community members there who will participate, so we hope you can join us there. Now I'm going to shift hats and go back to my Duluth Federation of Teachers hat. So I have a few things to tell you. We, as you know, I've been talking about the last year or so, we have a group called our Early Career Leadership Fellow, and they've done a really nice job and have been very successful. And actually, Emily Glomsky, the head of that, is going to be in the Education Minnesota newsletter pretty quickly talking about all the success they've had this year, so that's good. In light of that, I've been working the last couple of years trying to get a group for our teachers of color together. So I was thinking about what we've done with the early career folks, and I just reached out to Denise Specht and Kimberly Colbert, who both are at Education Minnesota, and said, why couldn't we do this with a group up here in the same light and enable them to pull together and have a budget to work with and do some training. So we actually are going to get to do that. So we're starting that up. And I came from a meeting of that just earlier tonight. So we have a budget in place, and we'll have a group starting so that they can do much the same thing. Hoping to encourage participation by our members of color as well in our union. On March 13th, we're going to have Education Minnesota Unity Day, where Education Minnesota is calling down all kinds of teachers. We're sending 11 folks down, and it is about the support of public education at the legislature. So we hope you can join us by wearing red on March 13th in support of public education. I just got word this week, or actually last week, that we are the recipient of an NEA My School, My Voice 50/50 initiative grant that was written in partnership with Paul Winkler from Education Minnesota for our local, to the tune of $20,000, and it is about work on ESSA legislation and collaborating for student success. So you'll hear more about that because you'll be included. So I was excited to tell you that. Finally, we've invited our Teachers of the Year here tonight just to kind of share. Some of you met them at the celebration in January. Unfortunately, Diane's not with us. She had a skiing accident last week, and so she's going to be on the mend for quite a while. It was pretty serious, so we'll keep her in your thoughts. But I'm going to bring up Sheila and Jane and Kristen, and they're going to talk to you about that. So thank you very much for all you do.
Good evening, Superintendent Grantzev and the board. It's great to be here tonight to be able to recognize our teachers. I want to just briefly fill you in on a little bit about the Minnesota Teacher of the Year program, now in its 55th year, and it's the oldest and most prestigious program in Minnesota to honor excellence in education. It has recognized excellence in Minnesota by choosing one candidate to represent the thousands of educators every year, and last year, an educator from Shakopee was chosen from a field of 167 educators. The process involves nomination and can come from parents, peers, personnel within the school district, administrators, and in Duluth we go through the Duluth Federation of Teachers. That's our primary funnel to both nominate and review the candidates. And I'm so pleased tonight that we have two of our three candidates, and Jane Jutine, a math teacher at Ordine. We also have Kristen Bergerson, who is a FIAD specialist at Lowell. And they're going to, in just a moment, talk with you about what the process has meant to them. The selection process has taken place now in Minnesota, and we just received word yesterday that there were 40 teachers selected throughout the state from a pool of 168 educators this year. Unfortunately, Duluth teachers did not advance this year, but I just always want to give a shout out to Al Shapelnik, because if he hadn't brought this program back to fruition a few years ago, it would be even rare to have our teachers represented at all in Minnesota, because years ago it was primarily Twin Cities educators. Requirements, briefly, just so you have an idea. They have to put together a portfolio, and they might speak to that a little bit, and get 5 letters of recommendation from students or colleagues, parents, or peers and administrators. And then they also have to write quite an extensive philosophy. And what's the last thing you have to do?
What problem you want to work
on? They have to work on a problem, yes, something they want to solve in education. So without too much further ado, I do want to just congratulate our two women here tonight, and the 3 of them did such an outstanding job. We were able to recognize them early in January. I know some of you were able to be there that evening. And we worked very hard as a committee, not only to recognize them and throw a nice event, which includes some food, but they do get a gift package. And I just want to read the sponsors so that you're aware that there are businesses in the community that do provide gifts for us. And I also want to thank board member Lofald, because she works with the mayor's office to get proclamations for the women too. So at Sarah's Table, Art of Hair, Blackwood's Grill, Duluth Grill, the DSSO, Ingwall Florals and Gifts, The Great Harvest Bakery, Mount Royal Market, Salon Capelli, La Bella Vie, Super One, The Benny, and Zeitgeist. And so if you can patronize any of those businesses and thank them for supporting our teacher year, that would be wonderful too. Without any further ado, I'll present Jane Jutine.
It's an honor to have been nominated, and I thanked Bernie and Sheila for pushing us to do this. The one thing with the portfolio, it was kind of like my procrastination came back to haunt me because we got it right before Christmas vacation. So that is what we got to do during Christmas break, was pull together our philosophy of education. And I've had kind of a winding road, starting out in a private boys' school in LA and then going overseas to Germany and Tanzania. So it was not only an educational journey, but a trip down memory lane. So it was quite an experience to pull that together. And the cause is, of course, equity and justice for me and for many of my colleagues at Ordine East. So that was really good to articulate and put it together in a two-page, was it double-spaced or single-spaced, proclamation. So it was a really good experience, and I recommend it for anyone. And Sheila was the one that said, you'll really appreciate it once you're finished. So I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
That was quick. I can be quick. Thank you. I want to thank Bernie. I want to thank the committee. When Sheila called me and asked if I would be or told me that I was nominated, I said no, thank you, because I always worry about the speech part. I'm not good at that, and all I said was, "Do I have to make a speech?" But I'm really, really happy that I did this. It was very enlightening, very meaningful. It's a lot of work, but I'm just really so glad that I did it. My philosophy was I chose the word believe, and every letter was, it was an acronym. So believe, I'm a believer of education. I believe in myself as an educator. I believe in my students and strive to make my students believers in themselves. E is every student will engage in physical movement. I'm a FIA teacher at Lowell. L, living healthy. They don't just move in FIA class, they learn how to keep healthy through many activities I design for them. I, importance that we as teachers need to instill in every one of our students that we care and every student is important to us. Effort, this is me providing physical education classes that promote and educate students on lifetime skills that will hopefully give them the opportunity to engage in lifetime skills to stay active and strong in body and mind. Volunteering, I try to provide my students all the extra activity they need throughout the day. I provide a lot of extra things at the school, and I also volunteer my time with a lot of other things just to keep our school safe and active. And I do things like morning recess, morning gym, parent pickup, anything to help our school. And yeah, I wanted to be a teacher since the second grade, and I'm very passionate about what I do. And yeah, so thank you for this opportunity, and this is a great program, and thank you.
I know, I feel like we need to applaud. And I do get a chance to look at their whole portfolio as I craft and work with the mayor's office for their proclamation. And, you know, this was just a thumbnail glimpse of all that these nominees have done in their buildings and as teachers. So they were great representatives for our Duluth Public Schools. And again, Sheila gave a shout out to Al Chapelnik. He's now a retired teacher that worked in our work experience, and he's the one that kind of brought this program back into our district about 5 years ago. And it's really a good way to recognize our program, and I thank the committee too that continues to lift up our staff and our teachers. Our last speaker tonight is Kevin Skewer-Brown.
Superintendent, board members, my name is Kevin Square-Brown, and I'm here representing the Community-Based School Equity Initiative. So we are aware that the district is developing a new budgeting process, a process that very likely will, in its quest to ensure financial resources are available to be spent where they're most needed, actually provide the district leadership with near complete discretion in how dollars are distributed across 13 traditional schools and our many programs. By abandoning past formulas by which resources were allocated, it introduces uncertainty as to what will be seen as priority and whose needs will rise to the top. The process also replaces school site decision-making by CITs with central administration-based decision-making. Rather than be guaranteed an equal or equitable share of resources, depending on the funding source, schools will now compete for resources. In a deficit-prone environment such as ours, the competing demands for resources are considerable. Typically, in such environments, the needs of those with more, not less, power, privilege, and access to decision makers fare the best. This was the case when the Comp Ed dollars were used to lower class sizes rather than attending to the needs of learners in each building the funds were intended to serve. You adopted a structural fix to address that. This year, for the first time, each building has discretionary Comp Ed to specifically address the achievement gap. We have heard praise for that move from schools east to west. The new budget process, while not formally undoing the Comp Ed realignment, will functionally make it irrelevant. We ask you, board members, to exercise your oversight role as the new budget process is unveiled. We trust that you meant it when you voted unanimously for equity in the distribution of Comp Ed. Please do not let the budget that comes out of this new process circumvent that impact. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment portion of tonight's agenda. Thank you again for coming up and speaking to us. Next on our agenda is our reading of communications and petitions. I turn that over to Superintendent Gronseth.
Thank you. There was one letter dated 1/22/19 from several teachers making a formal complaint regarding the process in removing To Kill a Mockingbird and the Adventures of Huck Finn from the curriculum and selecting new novels for grades 9 and 11. And that was the only formal communication. I did want to make an overall comment about communications. We really encourage people to sign letters when they are sending them, sharing concerns. For one thing, it formalizes the process, but for another thing, it allows us to follow up with some feedback or how it's addressed or why it's not addressed. And so we just really encourage folks to sign letters if they're going to send them.
We're going to continue with our superintendent's report.
Thank you again. Well, last week while we were on winter break, and I have to say I was glad we were on break with the weather that it was the way it was, and I didn't have to think about closing school. Sorry. But it was also school board week, and we were not in session, and so we didn't have an opportunity to recognize the board. So I want to take a moment to recognize our school board for all that they do for our schools and our community. We're very fortunate to have school board members who are very focused on the education of our community's young people. And there are so many facets to being a school board member of a district with 14 schools and 6 residential treatment centers, thousands of students, over 1,200 employees. And we know how much time and effort that all of you put into preparing for monthly discussions, and we appreciate your dedication to the Duluth Public Schools. And, well, happy School Board Week.
Thank you.
And last week was St. Louis County and Duluth Days at the Capitol. We were there on Wednesday and Thursday. Many of us braved that snowstorm to get down there. There were actually hundreds of people from Duluth that had the opportunity to advocate for our community in different ways with state legislatures. We had a very strong presence at the Capitol as a school district, and over the course of 2 days, we met with about 25 legislators. We currently have 2 bills in the House and twin bills in the Senate, one regarding special education funding, the other regarding incentive for selling Central for a developer. I have to say that our lobbyists have been instrumental in helping us during this session. In addition to setting up all those 25 meetings for last week, that was our 3rd visit to the Capitol, and each time we have met with about 10 legislators, key legislators, to moving our bills forward and for improving funding in Duluth. So we're very, very thankful that we're working with them. So they are keeping us in the loop regarding educational matters in the legislature, but also they continue to meet with legislators when we're not there and let us know when we should come and testify. So it's been really good to have their support. In other news, today all of our 10th grade students spent time at the deck learning about a variety of career options at Construct Tomorrow. It's an amazing collaborative event that's held annually. Students have a chance to learn about all different kinds of fields. I believe we had 14 partners that were there today in electricians and sheet metal and bricklayers and so many others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's such a great event, and the kids really dive right in. They're doing hands-on activities. They're laying bricks. They're setting tiles. They're pounding nails. They're using virtual reality, and it's really great. And this year was the first year we've had students who are in internships who were serving at the booths talking to our students, which was really cool. So we are very thankful for that event, and thanks to all the staff that work on planning that event and all of our partners who put so much time into setting everything up. And right now, it's over now, there was an event this evening where students could bring their families to learn more about the same. So lots of great opportunities in our community when we look at all of the projects that are going on right now with all the building and construction. They're in high demand and well-paid jobs. So we encourage students to look more into apprenticeship opportunities. Next week is Paraprofessionals Week, and our paraprofessionals are an important part of our team. They provide so many supports to our students and our families every day and in so many ways, and I'm hoping that many people will take time next week to share their appreciation with our paraprofessionals in fun ways. We also had some exciting news today. I try not to get too excited, but we heard that Governor Walz and Education Commissioner Ricker will be visiting Duluth next week, spending some time at Myers-Wilkins learning about our community schools model. Now, having said that, I understand that sometimes the governor has things that come up and he can't always make it, so we're hoping that his schedule holds and we're able to have a good visit with them. Now, let's hear what's going on in the high schools. So maybe, I can't remember who went first last time.
Natalie did. So
Natalie.
Vanessa.
So we will go to Student Rep Farrell first this time.
Not a lot's been going on the past month because we had break and had a few days of school off. Thank you, Superintendent. But there are some exciting things that are going to be happening soon. So one act got second place in sections. Boys hockey has section finals this week on Thursday, and then if they win that game, they'll be going to state next week. Alpine skiing had 2 boys go to state. And boys swimming has 9 boys going to state on Thursday. And this Wednesday, there's a jazz band concert.
Like she said, it hasn't been too busy with all the snow days. But in Nordic skiing, rally pole advanced to state. The swim team had a successful season in which almost every member dropped time throughout the season, and sophomore Joe Rudd will be competing at the state tournament this Friday. Music Listening Club advanced to state and placed third at state, competing against 20 other teams around the state, so that was really good for them. And math team completed their season, placing in the top 3 in the section, and 4 members made all conference. After 6 weeks of hard work designing and building their robot, Robotics successfully completed their robot and will be competing on the 7th through 9th of March at the DEC. I highly encourage you all to attend. It's a great opportunity to see what they've been working on. I'm on the team and would love to see all of you be there. Our show choir, Solid Gold, had 2 competitions so far where they placed 3rd and 4th, which was an improvement from last year, where was their first year last year. They always got last, but now they're improving at a rapid pace, so very proud of them. And the dance team will be having their show on next Monday at 7, so they want me to tell you to come as well, and that would be all.
Thank you both for that, and we will continue to watch the weather. I know that this has been a weather month like no other. I believe we're like 3 inches away from the all-time snowiest February in history, and so yeah, I'm saying, all right, let's go for another one, right? Hopefully, we won't miss too many more days because then we get to those conversations of making time up. So we'll try not to have snow days, but of course student safety is always at the forefront of those decisions. And as always, please keep an eye on the weather, and when things are difficult, make sure that you're checking social media or television or radio to make sure that school is on. So with that, that completes the superintendent report for February.
Thank you. Thank you to our student reps too for such a highlighting the great things that are going on in our buildings. So obviously I am the vice chair, and I also am the education committee, and that's the next report. We're going to our standing committees, but we all just kind of shifted our duties to our next in line. So because I'm running the meeting tonight, I thought that Member Oswald could do our education reports, and she's a team with me, and she'll be great. So Member Oswald, as our crew gets up.
Thank you, Acting Chair Lofald. As part of the team, I'm picking up the ball and running with it, so forgive me if I make any mistakes. This is testing my substitute teacher skills in ways I wasn't prepared for. So, the first thing we tackle at the Education Committee is all informational items. So this is all just for us to learn about the district. The Assistant Superintendent shares a report, and he celebrated Lincoln Park's marvelous suspension reductions that they've been able to achieve throughout this year so far, and I hope they keep that up. He's been out in the community at the Steve O'Neill Apartments and City Center Housing, and going to Alice parent trainings, and he even visited Piedmont, so thanks for getting out there. Next up was the committee and a curriculum and instruction report, and the director of curriculum, Gail Netland, shared that she's all about the registration right now and registering for high school classes, and talking about work going on in the middle schools and curriculum updates that are happening at the state level and here in Duluth. Next up, we had Brad V stop by to talk about college or career and technical education month, and he prepares an annual report every year and brings to us to celebrate all that we're doing with our CTE programs, and highlighted the Construct Tomorrow that was already mentioned by the superintendent. So I hope that if you haven't gotten there or want to go, just stop by tomorrow. Then we move on to grant applications. And we have all these that are being applied for. Phil Thuine at ALC's asking for money from the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation. Chrissy Valento from Lincoln Park Middle Schools asking for some money from the Duluth Public Schools Endowment Fund. And also from the National Endowment for the Arts. Kelly DeVrent, I apologize if I didn't say that right, at Lincoln Park also is asking for a Bush Foundation grant application. So those are all fantastic things. And Becky Gamash at Lowell Preschool is asking Education Minnesota Foundation for a grant. And I'm hopeful that all of those will be actively considered. So then we can move on to the action items, which we have a whole bunch of policies that kind of give us brain-numbing thoughts because it's a whole slew of them. We have a number of them that are on their second reading, and so that means that they'll be passed tonight, barring any changes that we make in discussion after I move the committee report. The first policy is 5123, a crisis management policy. The next one is to delete that one, and then the next one, policy 803, is to replace that. There's also a new policy, 535, about counseling regarding pre-career and technical programs that was required of us to pass. There's another one, 1083, to be deleted to create a weapons-free zone, and is probably going to be replaced on my next page with a school weapons policy, policy 501. So that's also in its first reading. We're going to be deleting our school discipline policy 5085 and replacing it with policy 5006, and that is all in its first reading. So that brings us to the resolution of the acceptance of grant rewards at Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein, and be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to this organization, and that would be the Organization of Education Minnesota Foundations for Excellence in Teaching and Learning from Rebecca Gamash. Got it. I'll learn. For some magnificent magnets in the amount of $2,458. I move resolution E-2-19-3628.
Second. It's been moved by Oswald and seconded by Member Sandstead. All those in favor of accepting the grant resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up on the agenda, we have extended field trip requests from some fourth graders at Lowell that want to head to Wolf Ridge Elementary Environmental Learning Center, which is a fabulous place that many of our elementary students get to go to. And finally, we have diploma requests for the following students have met all the graduation requirements and should be awarded a diploma. Brittany Nicole Cias, Ella Mary Costley, Catherine Rose Stingle, Alyssa Elaine Hopkins, Amy Grace Simonson, Anne Lauren Klein, Azaria Catherine Penazzoli, I apologize, Bryce Peter Jones, Caden Nathaniel Opland, one of those. Future updates are more policies, and more policies. So I move the Education Committee report.
It's been moved by Member Oswald and seconded by Member Trinka. Is there any comments?
I'd like to pull number 2A, 6, and 7 for a separate vote.
Any other comments? Any other? So, Member Sandstead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Lofald. The items that I pulled are our old school discipline policy, 5085, and the new policy proposed, 506, and this is just a first reading. However, I am going to vote against this because we were made aware that perhaps the process for going through this policy didn't include the staff members that it should have in terms of vetting the MSBA model policy and lining it with our practices here in Duluth. So rather than saying, oh, we'll fix it in the next month and putting a lot of pressure on the staff to get that through a whole bunch of busy people, I suggest that we would vote separately on this and vote it down so that it can be done correctly. So that's my hope.
Any comments? Thank you, Member Trinka. Member Trinka?
Just a quick question from administration. Are we under any statutory guidelines to have that? I know this is our first reading, so we'd be reading it again in 2 weeks. So are there statutory requirements that indicate that we need to have it done by mid-March or the end of March?
No, it was actually one of the other policies that we're working on that was the requirement, and we brought this one to you at the board's request. And so I'm not sure which one it was, though. Can you remember, Assistant Superintendent Horton, which one was the required one?
Number 3.
Yep, thank you. Number 3 was, yep.
Just playing games with me right now. The two that were required were the crisis management policy, and the other one had to do with the career technical education courses. Those were the ones that, for our audit. The other two were cross-reference policies, and that's how they came onto the agenda.
Mine was just a process question. We voted down. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I'm all for doing that, taking more time, but how do we vote down a first reading?
Also, process question, by voting it down, do you want it to come back as a first reading, or do you just want it to come back at a later time?
First reading. I asked for a vote, so I guess if we just vote.
So we've had a motion by Sandstead, and it's been seconded?
Second.
By Trinka to vote on 2A, 6, and 7. To make it clear, if you vote in yay, we are then not voting on a first reading and asking to come back for a first reading?
No.
We're voting it down, so if we say A?
A yes vote would be approving the first reading so that it would come on for a second reading next month without much opportunity for change. A vote no would be go back to the drawing board and come back for another first reading.
All those in favor?
That would be the opposite.
I know.
But there wasn't a motion. But we can't postpone indefinitely though, right?
We can postpone definitely. Postpone the first reading. Postpone approval of the first reading definitely. That's what I mean. I know what you mean.
But then don't we have to specify what we mean by definite? I don't want to say March. I want this process to be. I think we just voted down. Yeah.
And then we'll bring it back.
As something different, yes.
Yep. So no vote means we're voting it down.
All those in favor of supporting our policy 506 in its first reading, say A. Yay. All those in favor of not supporting policy 506 for its first reading? So motion to delete motion 50 or policy 506 and come back with a policy for a first reading when you've had time to talk with significant people and staff and input?
I think you. So you had 6 and 7 to address, and I think that you did.
I just did 506.
7, but the deletion was number 6.
Was 5085, yeah, right.
Yeah, so you have to vote on both of them. I think that's what you intended, right?
Yes.
Both of them?
Yes.
Okay. It's just not what was said.
Well, I'm thinking as a procedure that we don't want to delete. So the agenda says to delete 5085 and accept policy 506 as its first reading. So I think that now that we have said we are not going to accept 506, we do not want to delete 5085. Right. So we need a separate motion that says we need to maintain policy 5085 at this time.
We just say no to both of those.
Okay, we say no to both of those, so we won't delete. Okay. So is that clear in the motion, that the motion then that we voted on says that we will keep 5085?
Yes.
And, okay, so we're good. So moved.
That's where it's important.
And then we're going to accept the Education Committee report. And Member Oswald has made the motion and Trinka has seconded it. So all in favor of accepting the Education Committee with the adjustment of 2A, 6, and 7, vote A.
Aye.
And those not in favor, nay. Carries. We're moving on to the Human Resource Committee report by Member Kirby.
Thank you.
I need a drink.
I mean, you literally had like 2 minutes notice. So
That didn't sound good. The HR committee met, and actually we had a fairly brief meeting. The staffing action items were given to us, and as I recall, there were no questions about that. Our main discussion item was a new policy, which is policy 404, employment background checks, deleting our policy 404-2, and we're replacing this with the Minnesota School Board Association Model Policy 404. And this was the first reading for that. There was some, but not a lot of discussion about that, since a lot of it is in statute now. Mr. Swarsky, did you have anything to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. So that was it. It was very short. So I move HR report.
Second.
So Member Kirby has made the motion to accept the Human Resource report. It's been seconded by Member Gorham. Is there any comments? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a vote to accept the HR committee report. All those in favor say yay.
Aye.
Yay.
Those not in favor, what? Say nay.
Nay. No, sorry.
It's on our toes. Carry 6.
Motion carries 6-0. Stop. Okay, we're going to go on to our business report. Yay.
So as I was unable to make the business committee report due to snow on the roads, I'm going to ask my esteemed colleague on the business committee to share the business committee report for us tonight. So Member Oswald, it's all you.
Yay. Practicing, just practicing. We had possibly, historically, possibly the shortest business committee meeting ever, being that it was nasty weather out there, but it does not mean that it was for a lack of important topics, nor a reflection on the people that were unable to make it. So we were presented with the usual financial numbers and went over those. We had a number of fundraisers from box tops, picture day, bag and grocery ski club, and even selling spiritware. Go us. We have 2 bids from technology, utilizing a process called Universal Service Program Schools and Libraries Program, which is nicknamed E-Rate. Makes no sense to me, but that's the way it works. With the explanation of how E-rate funding works, there was 2 whole sheets in the packet, so you can feel free to read that. Discounts are provided to schools and libraries based on economic need and rural or urban classification, and based on the discount chart, ISD 709 qualifies for a 60% discount on these bids, which is quite significant and helpful considering the first low bid is for network elementary infrastructure equipment, which totals $429,705.80. The second package is for network secondary wireless infrastructure. That would be in the secondary schools. Infrastructure equipment in the amount of $45,715.60. After that, we moved on to discuss the second reading of the non-MSBA policy 307 about conflict of interest and fiduciary duty. Nothing stood out as objectionable and nobody really commented on it, so we moved on. So now we have the resolutions of the acceptance of donations. And so, whereas the Minnesota statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals and organizations. And we have many beneficiaries from Denfeld and East, and Laura MacArthur and Head Start, and Lincoln Park and Lowell, and Myers Wilkins. It's 2 pages worth, and we're very appreciative of all of it. So I move Resolution B-2-19-3629.
Second.
Member Oswald moved our resolution for acceptance of donations. Member Sandstead seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. And we'll continue with the business report.
Thank you. So one of the banks that we keep some money in, Harbor Point Credit Union, has needed to replace some collateral it's used to guarantee our money in their bank, because it's beyond the FDIC insurance amount. So this resolution has been created to do that. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that it hereby releases the $250,000 par value FHLMC note, CUISP number blah. I'm just going to say blah, that's really a number. Pledged as collateral by Harbor Point Credit Union. Be it further resolved by the school board that it accepts the pledge of collateral of a $250,000 par value FHLB note maturing on March 29th, 2019 with a CUSIP number, blah, in exchange for the released collateral noted above. I move Resolution B-2-19-3630.
Again, moved by Member Oswald, seconded by Member Sandstead. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any comments? Seeing none, the motion carries 6-0.
So moving on, we had various expenditure, no contrast, and revenue contracts under $25,000, none of which brought any discussion from anyone. We had the facility dates update from Mr. Spooner. Of note, we received a rebate check from the City of Duluth Comfort Systems for $15,401 for conservation measures during construction at Rock Ridge, and another $2,000 for retro commissioning at Ordine East Middle School. School safety training continues, and this month the administration building here had some building-specific training. And most notable is the district is currently conducting radon testing in all of its buildings, and as it is a recommended best practice by the Minnesota Department of Health. This can also be done in your home, as the Department of Health cites exposure to radon at home is the #1 cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. I didn't know, so if you want to know more, you can visit epa.gov/radon to find more information about testing in your house. Property updates we heard during closed session. If you have any desire to purchase any one of our beautiful properties for sale, please contact our realtor, Greg Fulmer. The board learned about the process of when a data information request is made to the district. Details can be viewed in our recording because it was pretty interesting. And our Secretary Dolitz did a wonderful job as educating us on how time-consuming and informative those data requests can be. At the end is attached the Whiffley Audit Engagement Letter. I hope you all read that lengthy piece of paper. I'm glad no trees died in that because that was riveting. This wasn't available at the Business Committee. It simply renews our agreement to provide auditing services to the district from Whipley for the 2018-19 school year, is authorized by a request for a proposal in February of last year. Lastly, our future items, including policy updates, the 10-year capital facilities plan, and the big ticket item, the preliminary budget, and the following month, the adoption of the budget, hopefully. The preliminary budget is expected next month with much anticipation as we are changing the budget process, and we're all eager to learn and work the kinks out so we can make it the best for all the kids here. I move the business committee report.
Second. There's a pattern here. Member Oswald makes the motion to accept the business committee report, and Member Sandstead seconds. Is there comments? Member Sandstead.
I'd like to discuss 3A. Conflict of interest policy.
Right, I got it. So, Member Sandstead.
Thank you, Chair Lowfold. And apologies because I was not there for this part of the discussion. I did make it for the last 5 minutes. It was a very quick meeting. I've read through, and it's not clear to me if this policy directly prohibits nepotism. And I'm wondering if I can get an interpretation on that.
It talks about conflicts of interest without using the term nepotism, of which is not in a terminology way prohibited, but what they're saying is in the conflicts of interest, your personal interest may impact, I have a financial or personal interest, direct or indirect, which is incompatible with the proper discharge of his or her duties in the public interest. That's as close as you're going to kind of see to that. It talks about blood or marriage relationships, domestic partnerships. Essentially, the way I'm interpreting that is you can have those relationships, they can't interfere with the personal interests.
Member Trinka first.
Okay, thank you. As is my concern with the first reading that we had of this, and I talked about this during the business committee, the first reading, I still don't think that this holds our contractors as accountable as I would like them to. It just says there's one thing in here about the contractors have to go to the district's website to review this policy. And we have so many contractors that we're working with. I mean, if you look at our expenditure sheets every month, I just really struggle with feeling like we don't really have any control over the conflict of interest that we have with the myriad of contractors who we work with. And so I'm struggling I had asked for some tightening up of the language around this, and I haven't. I do appreciate the changes that were made, but I don't necessarily see them in here, and so I'm struggling with supporting this in this iteration.
Member Sandstead.
Given that, and I think I'd like to see a little more clarity with regard to making it obvious that we're prohibiting nepotism, I'm going to make a motion that we definitely postpone item 3A to March, the second reading to March.
Second. There's been a motion by Member Sandstead and a second by Member Trinka. Member Oswald, there's a comment.
Thank you. Seeing that we potentially are going to postpone the second reading for another month, I would like some clarification on if this policy will actually cover nepotism or if we're going to create a separate nepotism policy. I think we need to be clear and definite on that.
I want to challenge our board to say that we haven't even had conversation around this topic, and so I don't know if that means we delay the policy, or I think it's a bigger conversation. I think we can adopt this policy as it stands right now, and as a board decide where we're going with any potential policy on nepotism, because right now I'm not prepared to talk about that issue, and I'm not prepared to deny this policy. This policy can cover general conflicts of interest, although I agree with Member Trinka that maybe it doesn't go as far as you would like as contractors, but I also know that, I don't know, I think that we've created a general policy that fits well for the majority of what we anticipate in our district, and to tighten it up further, I'm not always, again, I think it goes into a lot of detail under G through number 3, A through H, and the recommendations are it's a pretty complete policy, I believe, but I think that we can certainly have more conversation about nepotism, but that would be like an agenda, a working session, and a journey on that topic. I know it's prevalent in our community right now, and I would be interested in my members' input in it, but I'm not prepared to deny this policy because we don't have the nepotism part, because I think it's a bigger conversation. But Member Kirby.
Thank you. I think that if Member Sandstead and Trinka can come up with some changes that they would like, to put it all in the same policy at this time, since we've got this, would be fine. So I think delaying it a month would be fine. I don't have any specific things. I'd have to read it more, but I think if they thought about this and you have some specific things you could add, that would be helpful for us to start discussing it.
Member Trinka.
Thank you. Yeah, and I voiced a lot of those concerns at our business committee meeting a couple months ago, but I'm happy to send some of that language ahead of time, ahead of our next business committee report. I hadn't even thought about the nepotism thing, which given how prominent that is in our community right now, I think we owe it to learn lessons from those around us. So, even though we're not ready to discuss that tonight, I think that that's just another reason to postpone this until next month.
Member Oswald.
I'm just clarifying that I'm not saying that we need to have a full discussion of nepotism now or even the next month. I would like to clarify if this policy is covering nepotism or not. And if it's not, then we need to come up with another nepotism policy. That was my statement.
Member Gorham.
Yeah, I think given the circumstances surrounding the business committee preceding this meeting, I think it's prudent just to wait another month and see what additional language might strengthen it. If there's concerns among members of the board, I'd feel more comfortable doing that.
Member Sandstead.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I think I agree with Member Oswald that I think this policy might actually cover nepotism, but just not clearly enough. And so I think refining that over the next few weeks would be a useful task for us.
So we have a motion to postpone definitely till March. Policy 307. It's been motioned by Sandstead and seconded by Trinka. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Further comment? Motion passes 6-0 for policy 307. Now we are going to make a vote on the recommendation of the complete business report, and we've had the motion by Oswald and it was seconded by Sandstead. So all in favor of accepting the business committee report tonight say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Comments? I don't think so either, but that was his. I got it. So we are now finished with our special reports of our standing committees. Are there any other board items or questions that we have tonight? There's a motion to adjourn. Sandstead motions to adjourn. Oswald seconds. All in favor of adjourning, vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, vote nay. It passes 6-0 to adjourn